everybody. Today's Photoshop tutorial is a relatively simple one, but I had somebody ask me, so I wanted to make sure I could show how to do it. The question was how you can resize an image. So the way you can, I'm just going to show you how I do it. I'm sure there's many ways to do this in Photoshop, but I'll just share with you the way I do it. So what I do is, here's an image that I have recently taken. I opened it up and I go to my image menu and I say image size. And this gives me the details about the current image. So you can see it's a 4:6 with 300 dpi. I always save everything at 300 dpi if I know that I'm going to print it. This is important to know. If you're not going to print it and you're just going to put it on a web page, you really should not save it as 300 dpi. You should save it as 72 because that's the highest resolution a monitor can handle, and it's just not worth making it any higher, because making the resolution higher than that will actually make your image larger, which makes it harder for people who don't have a fast internet connection to download your image, to see it on your web page. So if it's just going to go on a web page, you don't need to make it higher than 72. Don't do so, because that way you can keep your image as small as possible. So if you wanted to change the resolution on this image without changing anything else, so the proportions would still be a 4:6, all you need to do is come here and you go 72, and that'll actually change. And if you'll notice on top, the pixels changed, but on the bottom the document size didn't change. So let me show that to you again. If I hit 300, see how the pixels are now 1800 instead of, when I make it 72, only 432. So that just means because you're using fewer pixels per inch, for the same amount of inches, which is a 4:6, you have fewer pixels. That's exactly what resolution means, how many pixels you have per inch. And pixels are really teeny tiny dots that you can't really see, but a whole bunch of them together actually creates this image that you're looking at. So that's one thing about resizing your image. Now if you wanted to change the actual size of your image, so instead of a 4:6, it's actually, I'm going to put this back at 300, it's actually a 2:3. You can then just click here and you can say 2. One of the most important things here is that I always try to constrain the proportions, because this image was taking a certain way, and if I actually make it longer and without actually cutting it myself, what will happen is it'll distort the image. So it's very important that you have this checkbox checked, the one that says constrain proportions. That'll actually make sure that the width and the height are linked to each other. If you look here, you'll see there's a link. That shows that the proportions are being constrained. So even though this is a 4:6, if I change this to 2, it'll change the width to a 3, because that's the same proportion. It's a 4:6, 2:3. Or if I change it to 1, it'll make it 1:1.5. And I'll just show you. So if I go ahead and change this to a 2, and I click OK, see my image just got smaller, but it looks exactly the same. Now I'm going to show you what happens when you don't do constrained proportions. If I turn this off and I change this to a 3, the width stays the same. It stays 6 because I didn't touch it. And then I hit OK, and see, it just squished my image, which is not what I wanted. Now, let's say that you actually really do want a 3:6 image. How do you get one without having to use the image size? Because that won't let you do it without squishing your image or ruining it. So the best way to do that, or at least the way I do that, is by using the crop tool, which is this tool right here. I go to the crop tool and I set my width and height right here. So I say I want this to be 6 inches by 3 inches, and I want to keep my resolution at 300 because that's what I'm using right now. And then what I do is I come inside my image and I draw. So here's a 6:3, and then what I can do is I can move this around so I have the best part of the image, or the part of the image that I want. It may not be the best part, it might just be what I want. So in this case, let's say I really don't want to see anything on top, but I want a little bit of the bottom of the basket. So I move this around by using my up and down arrows, or by using my mouse. And then once I have the snapshot of exactly what I like, then I double click on it. Boom, here's my new image. And if you want to see my image size, you go back up to image size. See, it's a 3:6 now. But it's not squished, it's not distorted, it's exactly the way I wanted it. So that's one of the 2 ways to change your image size. If you want to keep the proportions the same, then you just go to your image menu and you use the image size window. If you don't want to keep your proportions the same, then you can use your crop tool. Another way to do this is by using your marquee tool. So you can actually use your rectangular marquee, and you can go to style and say fixed size, and you can set the size right here. So you can say, let's say I wanted to change this to 2.5 by 2.5. I can leave that as 2.5 by 2.5, and I can come in here and it'll actually allow me to only pick a rectangle that is 2.5 by 2.5. In this case it's a square, and then I can move that around my image. I don't like this as much, because the nice thing that the crop tool does is it blackens out the rest of it, the part that's not selected, and it allows me to see the selected bit better. But if you wanted to use this, you could. And then what you do here is you copy the part that you like, and then you create a new document. It'll automatically have filled the details for you, so you don't have to do anything. And then you just paste it in. And here it is, 2.5 by 2.5. I think this is a lot more steps, and I personally don't think it's worth it, but I wanted to show you how to do it because it is another option. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me comments in the message. And thank you, and have a great day.